edge of the seat, and this is a slow burn. I mean, so, when you're talking about thousands of miles, taking the journey, that long trip.
All about the journey, not the destination.
Not the destination.
Well, maybe not in this case. It is about the destination.
We only care about the destination, 100%. This is a 10-day trip, or 7 to 10 days. This is a long way, and it's a lot to think about. And so you see what is Tropical Storm Erin. Right there. So we've got our E-storm will become our first hurricane of 2025. Confidence building there. Probably late Tuesday into Wednesday is when that'll likely happen. We'll get our hurricane. And all forecasts kind of coming together to show this could be a major hurricane as even as early as this weekend. So talking about a very powerful storm running into some favorable conditions for development. And then not so. We're going to show you some longer range models, and we're confident once we get beyond, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so we're talking 6-7 days out. We're still talking by Saturday. This thing is not even quite to Puerto Rico yet, so still a long way off by Saturday. And again, that's a point of talking about this is we've got a long way to go here. But looking in the longer range, this would be if we're using the math of about 7 to 10 days. Tuesday, Wednesday would be about where we're running out of our computer model timing and the spaghetti model plot. So you see right there on the top of the screen, Tuesday, August 19. In many computer models kind of coming into agreement. This is where the cones derive from. This is how they look at a consensus of modeling. And
for this, I will say, for this far out in the forecast, right, what is this, like 8 days?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a pretty consistent, that's a pretty tight grouping of the spaghetti plots until, perhaps the very end, there's a few outliers there. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, that's a pretty precise.
And even some of the more aggressive outliers, are painting a picture of this thing even still turning, and but maybe being as opposed to 700-800 miles away, 2, 3, 4, and that changes marginally. It changes local impacts because then you're talking about rip current risks, and you're talking about other kind of. Again, outlying impacts, not direct, but so what I want to see, and again, it's like, okay, every day we learn a little more information, but by the time we get to Wednesday, so we're going to get 48 hours more information. By the time we get to Wednesday, what we'll see on that curve or on the cone, will be that curve beginning. So I know you'll believe it until you won't believe it perhaps until you see it happening for yourself. And I get it, because what provides the energy for these things, these massive storms, to make that turn? And when you see it heading due west or generally due northwest, you kind of question what exactly is going to happen. And as we're looking at that model comparison for your GFS and your Euro, GFS a little bit faster, so this would as we get to August 20th, now we're talking 9 days out, so we're getting into Wednesday. Even the outline, kind of that Euro, which brings it a little bit further west, it would even limited impacts for the Outer Banks in North Carolina, which really juts out. So those things that kind of impact the turn, and as I turn to you, let's talk about that a little bit. So obviously we talk about the Bermuda High a good bit. Where is that going to be positioned? What about any other high pressure centers, any other ridging that's happening across the United States? Could that kind of battle back and keep it further south? And right now modeling kind of that consistent look that the Bermuda High, strong and holding that more kind of eastern position, and any ridging over the U.S. kind of weakens a bit, and allows for allows for that more northern term. And that's what we'll be watching. Also, the potential for, a lot of times we root for the front to come across the country. And as you look up towards New York City, perhaps, I have
bit of a front. Seen that in some of the long-range models.
You get a front coming in, and even some troughing that could help push and shove that away. So while kind of a trough is would be a path of resistance. We talk about path of least resistance a good bit. So you get that troughing that provides resistance. And a high, it's almost like trying to run downhill and giving least resistance. So you kind of get that runway, and that's what maybe it's a bit of a hope cast, but it is showing up pretty consistently in some of these long range models.
And I would say even if this does pan out right, that it recurves to the north, I've seen a decent amount of subsidence, and a lot of dry sinking air on the back side of the system that you'll see often, right? Like if it moves over the Florida Panhandle or peninsula and moves to the east, then behind it, you always talk about how like ungodly hot it is. We might actually see some of that to a certain extent, even when it does recurve,
for sure,
just based off of how much dry air it kind of pulls in on the backside.
Yeah, because you talk about the coupling up of a upper high and a surface low, and then that high can be, the upper level can be so massive. And on the edges of that, you just think of air falling out of it. And that's how these hurricanes, they're truly fast. I mean, like the dynamics and the structure, the way they ventilate themselves almost and build and then rebuild, it's amazing. So with that air on the edges of that high just kind of falling out of it, sinking air obviously is going to heat up and wring itself out of that moisture, and be dry and just be brutal. So good luck. But I'll take that any day over standing out in a hurricane. So there's your long range look with pretty, as far as you can, as confident as you can be this far out. And let me, and Russ, you kind of seesawing a little bit. Now, if we were this far out, 9 days, and the modeling was showing a different resolution and showing direct impacts, I think you and I'd both be like, listen, this is a time to prepare. It's a time to think and get your evacuation routes, know your zone. We always want you to have that anyway, but we would also be kind of tempering that with, but a lot can still happen.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to do that on this as well. While this is a more positive resolution, we are still beyond that 7-day kind of more that higher confidence, time. You get beyond that, you still look with a little skepticism. You trust that there is a little confidence growing because there's consistency in modeling runs, right? But you also have to think, let's still emphasize. With Erin, it's a great reminder to have your kit, have your go bag, and know exactly what would my family and I do in a situation where we're heading towards the first coast, and then that way you're prepared for later throughout the season.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, always kind of take these with a grain of salt to a certain extent when you are looking at them 7, 8, 9, 10 days out. Even.
For sure.
Right, whether it's showing you something positive or negative.
Correct.
There's still a lot of space for the storm to, trek or traverse over, and a lot of time as well. 2 factors, space and time, that a lot can change, in that time frame.
Interesting tropical update though. The map is very busy.
It is.
But of things that you need to concern yourself with, there is one, and that's Erin. But you see over towards the Gulf, although Hurricane Center's going boldly with 0 and 0 on both the 48-hour and 7-day.
I think that was a little bit of a CYA.
Yeah, maybe. Because it does look legit. I mean, it has the look of perhaps a little depression trying to get going, but that was at the beginning of the stream what we were talking about with the
heavy
quasi-low heavy rain, the Big Bend and Destin. So that's pretty impressive looking, all things considered. And then what you have in the North Atlantic and now beyond Bermuda was another storm we had been watching off the coast of Africa that's made its turn.
That we thought was going to potentially become Erin and never did.
Never did. So, so there's your kind of big picture look.
And then you have that one just off the New England states as well. That I think that was that new this morning? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, brand new. So that and in fact, not even during GMJ did we have that was probably 11 this morning. That this one came in, but the Atlantic is kind of waking up, and but I will say, as far as the Caribbean and Gulf side of things, other than what we're watching just off the Panhandle, not much in the way of development anticipated. not very favorable once you get into the Caribbean waters. Although sea surface temperature is very warm, we've got a little sheary kind of environment there. And in fact, Erin, if you look at a couple of maps and you look at maybe the 500 level in middle and upper layers of the atmosphere with the winds, it could run into, it's forecasting a 3, but by the time we get out to Puerto Rico, there's some models suggesting a little bit of shear kind of interacts with this. So
could limit any further intensification or strengthening.
Yeah. So are we looking at a 4 and a 5? I don't know, but 3's, hey, that's a monster nonetheless.